What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the same. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Jonathan Peress of ProMedia.com. And Jonathan, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes people should check out of the podcast. A couple that stick out actually was Kevin Hergen. He has been an agency owner since 1995. And he's with Spinutech. He shares kind of the evolution of the journey because there's always an interesting evolution back from 1995 to the present. I had Todd Tasky on, who's got also has a great podcast, the Second Bite podcast. And he basically pairs an agency with private equity and helps sell agencies essentially. And sometimes they make more off the second bite than they do off the first. So hence the Second Bite podcast. I've listened to all his episodes. Jonathan, fantastic, because if someone's an agency owner out there, just some great lessons to be learned. So check out the episode I did with Todd Tasky. And this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships and partnerships. And how do we do that? We actually help you run your podcast. We are an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do accountability, strategy, and the full execution and production behind the scenes. We call ourselves the magic elves that do, work in the background to make sure everything looks easy for the host and the company. For me, Jonathan, number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, go to rise25.com to learn more. I'm excited to introduce Jonathan Peress. He's CEO of ProMedia. ProMedia has grown by more than, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, on this, but more than 120% each year. And they made the Inc. 5000 4 years in a row, 11th fastest growing company in South Florida by the South Florida Business Journal, 10th fastest growing small business in America by Entrepreneur Magazine. Jonathan, you were named one of South Florida's top 40 under 40 by the South Florida Business Journal. And what ProMedia does is they're an independent advertising agency that specializes in cost per acquisition. They use direct response, alternative media. They offer clients TV, radio, out of home, digital advertising services, placement in national cable, and more with companies. You can get on ESPN, TNT, Vice, MSNBC, and many more. And Jonathan, thanks for joining me.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Start us off first with, and everyone was watching the video, Jonathan's got a beautiful view. Unlike Chicago, it's cold. He's in Florida. But tell people about ProMedia and what you do.
Yeah, thank you. So we're a full-service direct response ad agency. Direct response, very key to what we do. It's all we do. Direct response is advertising that utilizes a unique call to action. So everything that we do has a unique phone number or website to make sure that we can give our customers a directly attributable, immediate return on their investment. As a full-service agency, we offer creative development services with our state-of-the-art green screen production studio in our offices in Miami. And past that are full post-production distribution capabilities, telephony services that include access to 25,000 true 800 numbers. And then more formally, as a media buying agency, we offer services, television, radio, and digital, as you already touched. And that's both in English and Spanish, short form and long form. And a really unique distinguishing factor for us is we work with customers in two different ways. It's both in a paid media environment where we buy media on our customers' behalf based on our expertise and relationships and make a fixed commission on the spend. Or more excitingly is our performance media model, where our customers are paying us a fixed cost for a qualified response. Both the amount per response and the type of response is subjective to the campaign. But the key point there is that we take the risk on the media buying side. Something that a lot of people are very familiar with in the online space, but aren't aware that exists in traditional linear media as well too, specifically in television and radio. And then just past that is a really significant commitment to technology and analytics. We have a full staff development team that is on staff for the agency full-time domestic here in the US. We run the agency 100% of proprietary technology to really provide our customers the most bang for their buck and as many resources as possible to grow their campaigns.
Jonathan, I love, I want to get into mistakes people make with calls to action, because you've probably tested and seen a lot. But before we get there, I'd love to hear why, a lot of companies go with the fixed commission piece, right? And you have a performance piece. So you only get paid if you get results for the client, which is risky on your behalf, right? Because you're putting in the time, you're putting in the money, and you only get paid if you get a response for that company. So talk about why you made that decision to do that, because obviously it seems like a no-brainer for the client, but for you, there's risk.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. We started out as a pure performance agency, really cut our teeth there. And it was really only over time of being one of the more consistent and reliable performance agencies out there that we even earned that paid media environment for our customers. And frankly, even at that point, there was always a blend of the two for our customers to take advantage of the both and really, have a more cohesive campaign at the end of the day. The reason why we do it, though, is just we're really good at what we do and we're confident in that fact. At times, customers may have certain feelings about things that we may or may not agree with. So in a performance environment, a lot of times it allows us to do what we believe is going to be the best decision for the campaign and get our customers results, while at the same time, not necessarily offending them or upsetting them that our decisions might be different than theirs, to just be as PC as possible around that.
So who is a fit? Because again, you take on the risk. So you can't take on everyone, right? Because you're putting your money down first. Who's a fit to ideal company or fit for you to work with?
Sure. So just within the overall direct response world, television, radio, more predominantly, we're looking for, different products or services that make sense for a process that's either going to look for a generation of leads and then be able to follow that lead down the funnel to eventually acquire it, or really something that will turn over really in an immediate fashion. We work in a lot of different verticals. We're fairly agnostic in that regard, whether it's legal services, financial services, medical devices, insurances, education, as well as just standalone products as well too. But we work with entrepreneurs that have a very keen understanding of their business and are looking for a fairly efficient and light on the risk model, as well as huge Fortune 100 companies that have enormous campaigns. They're running multiple different channels and they're looking for just optimizations within the spaces that we work in.
How do you decide where to start? I don't know which of those we want to take as an example, whether it's financial or legal, but what's the first step you have to working with them? Because it seems like there's so many channels that you can use to sell stuff.
Sure. So as it relates to just how we start a campaign up, it really depends on what the vertical is. Is it something that's out there in traditional linear media, or is it something that's really brand new to the consumer? So based on that alone too, that has a lot to do with our recommendation to our customer of how we're going to test and how we're going to step foot into the overall space. And then past that as well too, there's a couple of different principles there. One, a lot of times we're providing production at no cost to our customers. So when we bring people on, as long as they're willing to make at least a reasonable commitment at around the media test standpoint, we're going to utilize our state-of-the-art production studio and provide our services really at no cost to our customers. And then from there, it's not falling in love with our creative, because the unique thing about direct response is the people decide whether or not the spot works, and whether or not the approach and the messaging makes sense to them, and if it's something that makes sense to the consumer. And then past there, we utilize proprietary AI. We utilize third-party media research and planning tools, as well as our hundreds of millions of dollars of historical results that we keep within our proprietary technology to inform our decisions as it relates to selections from a media partner standpoint and how we grow and scale a campaign. We work with customers, and like I said, in a lot of different verticals. And a lot of times, if we're working, for example, in a vertical that is already pre-existing out there, let's utilize legal services, a class action lawsuit or something like that. We'll go so far as to create our own campaigns, call it a white label campaign, where we will produce the spot ourselves, buy the media ourselves, and then utilize our proprietary technology to route those responses or pass those responses to a variety of different customers throughout the country. And it gives those customers the ability to take advantage of potentially a national advertising campaign when they necessarily don't have the budgets or the need for that, but have the ability to buy off of a program like that, which is going to be vastly more efficient and more capable, both at scale and optimization levels.
Jonathan, talk about the components of the ad, right? You've produced many ads, and I'm sure there's certain elements that you've seen that need to be included in the ad itself from a direct response standpoint. What are some must-have elements of the ad?
Very clear messaging. We're big believers in the KISS method here. We try to keep it as simple as possible because listen, to utilize television and radio for that matter as well too, people are distracted. There are things going on in your household, or you might be driving. The kids are tugging on you. Your spouse or loved one is talking to you about something else. You're looking perhaps at another screen as well too, which is definitely obviously something that is happening more and more every single day. So we got to keep things as simple as possible. If you see it but don't hear it, or if you hear it and you don't see it, you need to be able to absorb a lot of the same information as well too. Those are just some of the things that we try to focus on. But like I said also before as well too, we never fall in love with what we produce. If it's beautiful, it's funny, it's great, so be it. Just because we think that doesn't mean it's going to work. What works is what brings the response in at the price point that the customer can pay for and that we can live at.
What are some mistakes you've seen that are made with the call to action? Because you could do everything right up to the point, and the call to action is not good. It doesn't matter. So what are some mistakes you've seen either you've iterated on or you've seen others make? You may be watching TV and go, oh, they totally blew the call to action on that one.
Sure. I think to touch on what I was mentioning before, confusing call to actions, or perhaps maybe not offering enough of a call to action, understanding how distracted your potential audience could be. I love the fact that you use the word iterative. We find in our process that direct response is a very iterative process. And that's really why we developed the ability to create production and provide it at no cost to our customers in-house, because down that path of not falling in love with our creative, there are a lot of times where things need to be changed and altered to find that sweet spot and to achieve the growth and optimizations that we're looking for. So we are constantly coming up with different ideas and ways to change the message to provide that value and to get in that spot that we need to get into to find success. But in terms of other mistakes that people make as well too, the funny thing, especially about television, is it is unfortunately a very fickle business as well too. And we've seen sometimes the most minute changes in ads without even reshooting it or even changing the messaging. But simple things as changing the background color and things like that, having dramatic impacts on the success of a campaign. So we also like to be cognizant of that as well too, because sometimes the simplest solution is the right one.
That's interesting. I would not have thought of that one. Are there any other small changes that you've seen make a big difference? So you mentioned background color, I don't know, website, phone number. What are some small changes that you found could make a big difference?
Absolutely. You nailed it on the head. Sometimes it's changing the website, removing the website, adding website, sometimes even the use of a phone number. Or the phone number that you're using. We have invested in quite a few what we call rapid recall phone numbers that have the last four digits with repeaters like an AABB or an ABBA repeater. And we find that sometimes that helps our potential viewer base with retention, knowing that they're being fed a lot of different ads in a very competitive space at this point in time as well too. There are really a lot of different levers that we can pull and buttons that we can push. And that's really, I think, one of our secret sauces and something that I pride ourselves in being unique in the marketplace and being able to know those levers to pull and buttons to push at the right time.
So, Jonathan, in some cases, not including website is helpful?
Could be.
Interesting. I want to talk about the, borrowing credibility, social proof, and the celebrity endorsements and how that works with what you do.
Yeah, so I would say that, over the last 8 to 10 years, we have definitely put ourselves on the map, in a variety of different verticals. One, I believe that has been very significant for us is in the insurance space, and definitely one of the first groups out there that utilized a variety of different celebrities to endorse that company, and utilize the likeness of celebrity to be able to really lend a hand to our consumers to make a more informed decision and at least find comfort in the decision that they're at least initially approaching. We've utilized celebrity multiple times in multiple different campaigns and verticals, and have at this point really strong relationships with a variety of different groups as well too, to not only create the ads and buy the media behind it, but even facilitate sometimes the relationships with those celebrities and even help out with negotiations and getting them to the right place as well too, just based on our experience and success in the space.
Talk about the process for choosing the right celebrity. Because again, we're looking at a blank canvas here. Where do you even start for a product? I don't know if you want to start with, I know you serve a number of things in the Medicare space, but you could start there. But how do you choose a celebrity?
I would say that process includes a variety of different factors. Of course, a lot of research internally, and a lot of times too, the biggest part of success is just somebody's availability and willingness as well too. So finding the group of people that is willing to have the conversation, as well as finding people that have the right reputation, and that can create the right reaction to the consumer to generate the response that we're looking for. I would tell you that it's not easy and it's not necessarily something that always works. So again, something like you don't want to necessarily fall in love with, because the people will really tell you if the pick was right or not. So creating also relationships and understanding with different groups that align where everybody's on the same playing field and we're able to follow the path of success and not necessarily be held hostage by the path of failure.
With the Jonathan, the creative process with the celebrity piece, do you come in like I'm just visualizing you and the teams around the table, and you're thinking about who should be for this campaign? Are you thinking in certain genres like, hey, let's look in the sports category or this category? What are you thinking about and like bucketing to get to kind of at least a final couple candidates or genres for celebrities?
It's tough. I think that each process has stood on its own in terms of identifying a longer list of people that we think makes sense from an age, demographic standpoint, and also just what the individual might be within somebody's brain space. And then obviously trimming that list down further and further based on then those additional factors like availability and willingness and opportunistic kind of mindset, and things like that.
You mentioned an example in the mass tort class action space where you could create essentially a national campaign because it's under a separate brand. Talk about the Medicare space a little bit and what you do there.
Yeah, so we've been, I would say, at the forefront of the growth of the overall Medicare insurance explosion on traditional television, linear television over the last 8 to 10 years. At different points in time, have driven upwards of 3+ million phone calls a year, with people interested in these different products or services. And I think that just speaks to our agency's capability of being able to not only fine-tune campaigns and optimize them, but also being able to scale to the needs of our customers and service a very wide range of the industry. And to kind of just expand past Medicare as well too. The same goes, like you said, for the legal space, different financial services campaigns as well too. When there's an opportunity within this space, we know that we have the tools and the tricks to be able to grow and scale to our clients' desires.
Is there a certain perception on certain channels are dead and you have found otherwise? Like I look at I'll pull it up here actually. If someone's looking at this, you could see where the ProMedia website, fantastic domain name, first of all, ProMedia.com. That must have been hard to get. But, what we do, right? And so we can look at some of these things that you do, as far as it could be a billboard, it could be radio, it could be, are there any of these channels that people are like, Jonathan's radio's dead. Why would we do that? But you found otherwise.
Yeah, I think that right now with the explosion of digital media and social media, there's a lot of folks that like to look down on some of our more traditional, media channels. But I would tell you that the numbers speak for themselves. Television has become the soundtrack of a lot of affluent households, as well as just households in general that own their own homes, and they make decisions that advertisers are very interested in being a part of. Over the last few years, we've been responsible for driving millions upon millions of phone calls and responses just based on, television and radio advertising. And if you look at radio, I would say that, there's really a renaissance going on in that space as well too, with streaming audio and podcasts, which is, bringing an entirely different approach to how the consumers are, really digesting this content and the way for an advertiser to really interact with that consumer. So I would tell you that we're in a very exciting time. And furthermore, I would tell you that every single one of our customers tells us that television has an enormous impact on their other online channels, like social and digital channels. And the impact is so great that many times when television budgets are lighter, or there's a slowdown in television scale, that they will see their digital channels have immediate impacts to the detriment of those channels, both in efficiency and scale and success. So I would tell you that, while people are consuming content in a different way, they still are consuming content constantly. And, cable and satellite providers are also changing their game and their style as well too, and providing a more integrated approach and a more cohesive piece that includes different streaming pieces as well too, making things easier for customers, and frankly puts us in a really good position to be able to still service a wide range of customers and impact multiple channels.
You mentioned traditional radio. Can you talk about print and out of home and what that is?
Yeah, I would tell you that print has expanded past, the traditional newspaper and magazine ads as well too. Insert media, for example, when you are ordering a package from Amazon or any other direct-to-consumer brand that you're finding on your social media, you're going to have a variety of different inserts in there that are extremely high intent and providing a lot of value to customers. And when you look at out-of-home as well too, definitely something that is part of an omni-channel approach, which is, of course, a major philosophy of not only ours, but really all successful advertisers out there, and trying to provide your customers with a variety of different places to capture brain space so that people make informed decisions around that brand or that campaign, really in a circular and cohesive approach.
Jonathan, what would be an example of a good use case? Because I could see I'm getting a package that I've ordered, whatever type of product it is. And it makes sense for what you're saying. There could be a partner that places an ad in for a similar type of product that I probably would be interested in also. What would be a good use case, like an example that you've seen work in that situation?
Sure. So we do a lot of work in the medical service space as well too. We have a mid-sized franchise that we do a lot of work for that provides a medical service to the adult 50+ crowd. And, they are definitely somebody that believes strongly and has a lot of success stories around that omni-channel approach, where they're seeing it in television, they're hearing it in radio, but at the same time, both those pieces have a very clear direct response mechanism. And at the same time, we're utilizing different print techniques like inserts or, for example, even postcards. So if somebody sees the spot, they're immediately then getting fed with a postcard. If they didn't convert on that phone call, for example, they're immediately getting hit with a postcard 2 to 3 days later in a medium that they understand and agrees with, kind of within their ecosystem, to try to further capture their understanding, capture more brain space, more mind share from them as well too. And then furthermore, around those locations as well, seeing different out of home opportunities, whether they be bus shelters or billboards, to just further down the funnel, capture their attention and hopefully inform their decision.
Yeah, so it seems like a very kind of multi-channel approach. It's not that they see it and they buy, but they may see it, they may get a postcard, they may see it on TV, they may get targeted via, on, the website or whatever the case is. I want to talk a little bit about what's interesting about your journey is your kind of transition to CEO. So can you walk through just some of the evolution of your responsibilities and how that transition worked to CEO of the company and owner?
Sure. So started out really as the first employee of the company, very involved in just trying to bring in a customer base that was at that point in time mostly rooted around being an agency's agency, and just providing almost a secret sauce to some of the larger agencies out there. And over time, then growing that into acquiring more customers directly as well too. And then in that infancy stage as well too, working with a lot of our media partners as well too, being that, we had pretty much no staff. And over the years, evolving until I started becoming a partner, call it 2 or 3 years later, where still involved in a lot of those same pieces as well, but then now became a much larger voice in terms of the buildings of the agency and what would inevitably grow to a 35 plus person agency. So a lot of recruitment efforts, a lot of establishing and growing additional campaigns, and bringing a lot of these other different pieces that we've done. Like we talked about different celebrity endorsements, acquiring post-production and distribution technology, as well as other proprietary technology, and growing that as well too, to the point where we are now. At this point in time, I'm involved in lots of little bits of everything, but also very much so trust the incredible talent that we have at the top of the agency. That includes our COO, our SVP, our of media, our SVP of the agency, as well as all the other incredible leaders that we have on staff.
What's a challenging piece of being CEO?
Right now, I would say over the last couple of years, recruitment has been very, very challenging. There's been a drastic change in the expectations, understanding, and desires of employees. So that has been something that I know that a lot of other business owners have shared, their concerns with as well too. And then just as an overall, just trying to always stay ahead of the curve and continue to evolve, as the rest of the industry does as well too. Always presents its challenges. It's exciting, but at the same time, something that takes a lot of attention and takes a lot of, growth and ideas and perseverance around to be able to do so. And I feel like we've done that very successfully.
Talk about balancing business and family. You have 3 kids, you're married. How do you balance everything?
Not perfectly always, that's for sure. But definitely try to keep priorities and where life is at in relation and in perspective to things. I would tell you that spending time with my wife and my children definitely charges me up to be able to do the best possible job I can for the company. But like everybody else, you have your moments where you do great work and you have your moments where you struggle, and try to just keep that all in perspective and balance. And just very thankful and feel very blessed that I have all that in my life.
Is there certain things you do with your schedule or productivity wise? Some people wake up early, some people stay up late. Is there certain items that you do that just works for you?
Yeah, I'm probably to lack of medical requests. I'm not much of a sleeper, so I'm an early riser and a guy that goes to bed pretty late as well too. But that allows me to try to do things for my health, like exercise and have a decent diet, provide the appropriate amount of attention to the business, but at the same time as well, too, be able to see my family and spend time with them, especially in the evenings as well, too. Whereas my evening hours are definitely reserved for catch-up work and trying to make sure that I can start the next day not behind, but hopefully ahead.
Where do you get your kind of the entrepreneurial spirit? Does it come from your family?
I definitely think so. I'm a first-generation American, Jewish on both sides. On my mother's side, we are a Holocaust survivor family. My grandfather was in Auschwitz for 6 years, and my grandmother to this day earns restitutions from the German government on behalf of survivors all across the world. In the beginning stages of the company, I would spend the night in her office, sleeping on her couch and listening to the fax machines come in at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning from Germany. As an 85-plus-year-old woman working 6 days a week, speaking 6 different languages, I would say that work ethic was always instilled in me at a very young age. One of my earliest desires as a child was to work. Started out working as a 14-year-old, originally a classical tuba player, so started playing professionally when I was in high school. So instead of hanging out and messing around, I was usually playing gigs on the weekends, practicing my instrument, and working at restaurants and retail stores and trying to do whatever I could to just try to further myself and earn my keep.
Yeah, Jonathan, thanks for sharing that. One of the inspirations behind Inspired Insider is actually, my grandfather was a Holocaust survivor as well. And, I always thought of these interviews as, helping people leave a legacy, because that's what, the Holocaust Foundation interviewed my grandfather. And that actually is on my website on the About page. So when my kids are old enough, there's some brutal things that he talks about. So maybe they're not ready for it now, but they'll be able to watch it and future generations will be able to watch it. What are some of the stories that your grandmother shared that are most memorable?
My grandmother was a child survivor, so she was actually hidden literally underneath a barn during Nazi checks. She was raised by a chief executive of her father's company. Her mother was killed, right around the time of the war, was never given a chance. So she had a very difficult upbringing, to say the least, but obviously found prosperity in post-war Munich when she met my grandfather. My grandfather lived in Poland when the war broke. His mother and sister were both killed in front of him. His mother, I believe, was thrown off the roof of their house while she was pregnant with their third child. And my grandfather and his father, who was a doctor, served, I think, 5+ years in Auschwitz. And it was there where my understanding was my grandfather performed surgeries on a lot of different survivors in the barracks. And he was eventually liberated by, I believe, the Americans in 1945. And several years later, he was able to meet my grandmother, and my mother was actually born in Munich in 1951, and several other children after that, including my partner, my aunt Sharon, who was actually born in Brooklyn as the youngest of the family. So a lot of struggle, but a lot of perseverance as well too, which is really the amazing thing about that generation. And I've been very fortunate over the years to spend a lot of time, not only with my grandparents, may my grandfather rest in peace, but also with a lot of their friends who are also survivors, and just hear stories about death marches and just the kind of unbearable hardships that they all had to go through, and really puts a lot of perspective around the things that we deal with, in today's world.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's, to say it's a struggle is an understatement, obviously. It's crazy to think about, how does it motivate you? What are some of the lessons that you think of when you think of what your, kind of grandmother and grandfather have relayed to you?
Yeah, it's work ethic. It's a belief in satisfaction with what you have and being grateful at all times for what you have and not taking it for granted. It's something I definitely try to instill in my children as well too. For example, being grateful for food. My grandfather always used to tell me, food is not a privilege. And to know what it's like to be hungry, which he did, was something that stuck with me as a very young child. So folks that know me know that wasting food is really not something I have much of any tolerance for. Definitely something that's probably a big quirk of mine for sure.
Jonathan, I want to just thank you. Thanks for sharing the stories. Thanks for sharing the story of ProMedia.com and also your personal story. I want to tell people they can go check out ProMedia.com to learn more. Are there any other places online that we should point people towards?
I try to talk from here to there on LinkedIn and share stories about the agency as well. That's something that we've been trying to do as of recent. We are at a lot of different industry trade shows, whether that is insurance trade shows, legal trade shows, direct response trade shows, internet marketing trade shows. We try to make our presence known wherever we are. And more than anything else, I'm a phone guy. So I put my information out on LinkedIn. I'm happy to have people call or text or email at any time, because we're always looking to bring business in, not turn it away. We have no barrier of entry. And there's no really campaign too small or no customer that is too unknown for us to take a look at, because that's how we got here. And we never want to change how we got here. And we just want to continue to provide better opportunities for our customers as well as our employees as we continue to grow this agency.
You work directly with clients, but you still get agencies wanting you to work with them on behalf of their clients too?
Yeah, we're very collaborative, and we have no problem being first, second, third, or fourth fiddle. There's no ego here. So for us, we love working directly with customers. We love working with specialty agencies that service a specific type of customer. We love even working with other ad agencies as well too, whether they're in our space or in complementary spaces. We really don't, again, have any barrier. We try to tear down all those walls and just look at everything as the worst thing it's competition, and just be very open and, opportunistic as it relates to just work and growing our customer base.
I just want to be the first one. Jonathan, thank you. Thanks for sharing your story. Everyone check out ProMedia.com to learn more and more episodes of the podcast. And thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like $100 grand.